order and May 12th at 5 p.m. were located in the HJ House or Administration Building in the boardroom. This meeting was posted according to law. Do we have any audience or patrons this evening? All right, moving on. We're going to canvass votes for the school board trustee election held on May 3rd. BCISD trustee place 1, Trent Tenon, had 656 total votes and had 100%. Trustee 2, place 2 for BCISD trustee James Spartamine had 611 votes at 100%. Trustee in place 3, which was 3 people, Felix Nunez, Kenneth Eaton, and Sarah Dwight Kraft. Kenneth Eaton had 321 for 38.54%. Felix had 195 for 23.41%, and Sarah Dwight Kraft had 317 for 38.06%. Is there a motion to be made to canvass the votes?
Make a motion that we canvass.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to canvass the votes. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, we are going to move on to the next item of business, the resolution of recognition and congratulations to Bay City ISD School District Board of Trustees honoring Pastor Jerry Manning. Pastor Manning was a member of the board for many years and has now been chosen for a role to lead a church here in Bay City. So we wanted to just give him a resolution of recognizing him and thanking him for his work that will be given to him and read for him at the installation. Is there any questions or comments about that item of business? All right, is there a motion to be made to accept the resolution of recognition?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of recognition and congratulations for Bay City Independent School District Board of Trustee honoring Pastor Jerry Manning.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll say.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, straight into the budget workshop. Hello, sir. How are you this evening? Good.
So Mr. Gomez has been working hard on putting some things together for you guys for our budget. He spent last Thursday over at Region 3, because there's quite a few people working on Omar's template, hashing it out, trying to get an idea on revenue at this point, which of course is not going to be 100% accurate at all. But he spent, what time were you up here till last night, or that night?
4:30 in the morning?
Yeah, 4:30 in the morning. So, which isn't rare for him, but just want to say he's put a lot of effort into it. And and remember, it's kind of a high level
Yes.
overview. And then we'll be able to start narrowing things down a little bit more. It's all the campuses have their allocations. And so once they start finish budgeting those, he's in the process of meetings with them right now, that they'll be putting them into the specific budget accounts, and then we'll be able to have a breakdown more of the expenditures as opposed to just at the function level.
Correct. Yeah, like Mr. Johnson said, this is just a high level overview. Just got a couple factors influencing the budget process. Going to Region 3, the liaisons there, they were very, very extremely helpful. As you guys know, legislative session is the one that we're doing, so we read more simple some of this amount of factors, which is current law. You'll see the effects up here in a little bit involved in attendance. Driver factors, portion of state increase in property values, you'll see the effects of that. Inflation, you already know that. Driving the cost of what we're purchasing, what we're buying, supplies and such. Contracted services, another you guys are aware of the tax compression. So the increase in property values and tax compression will hand in hand as the values go up, the values are compressed. The way it was explained to me is basically that ultimately it just depends who's making up the share of the budget. If property values continue to go up and they compress that rate, well, because of increased property value, you're going to see the local share make up the majority of the budget versus the state. So, just disclosure, figures that will be shown are estimates based on the data we'll explore. Same slide as last year, just an explanation of property values, tax compression. M&O tax rates compressed at lower state compressor rate and local compressor rate. Current year property values, of course, affect tax compression. M&O tax rate will decrease in tax year 2025. So therefore, it's going to, property values will drive up. You're going to have the same complaints more than likely. Environmental taxes. Well, yes, we're compressing the rate. You're going to see that trend just continue to drop down. But because we're trying to meet state values here, the county, you're going to continue to see those rise. We saw a $700 million jump this year on estimated value. So I'm using that as a conservative effort. That's almost a 36% increase. Going conservative, we're going about 30% factor that. Just because 700 million, I'm not quite sure where we're getting that figure from, but once again, it's an estimate. That's not taking into account all the folks over 65 are still submitting their freeze adjusted homestead exemption. So those that are going to freeze and the tax are going to freeze that, amount to be taxed at 65. And then homestead exemptions that are still coming in, and then approval, appraisal review, stuff is going on there. So things are being contested. State aid is based on current year's state comptroller property values. Once again, we haven't built the property value state. That's a good thing. We're continuing to meet or be above those. So very good job there. Just taking a look, like I said, high overview ADA, what we adopted that was 3137 and enrollment around 3,500. We did lose about 43 kids at snapshot. So right now, this 3119 is as of this 6 weeks. That's our ADA. Decrease of about 18. So if we look at the property tax, we adopted last year's budget based on the adopted tax year 2023 rate of 68.50. After compression, that got compressed down to 66.69. Using current law template, we're seeing an additional decrease or compression of down to 61.90. That's because, like I mentioned, property values. Net taxable value for M&O is about 1.8%, estimated at 2.5 billion. So $700 million jump. I think some of that has to do with maybe some tax abatements falling off, payment increase, one of those that was potentially mentioned. They couldn't really do anything so that they, like I said, it's still an estimate on there. They have a couple, so they have to certify values in July, and there's a couple of they still release after certification. Penalty and interest taxes, we had a really good return on those this year, so about 30,000. Interest income is going to be down as fund balance continues to erode. Cash flow is going to be a little bit harder to contain. On top of that, looking at some of the projects that we're looking to implement, and then just depending on what the Fed does, as far as making sure that where the yields are, and that's going to be steady. So that's a conservative number there. We budgeted 300,000. We'll be looking for 100,000. A lot of that also has to do with the fact that we're missing out on about $3 to $5 million that we could have been generating for about 2 months. So cash flow was very, very tight. This is all where we had to start protecting because at that point of the year we're highly dependent on the tax revenue. Worst time of the year for that to happen. So missed out on a lot of the interest there. Miscellaneous local revenue. Some of that's been brought down because we're also getting away from E-rate refunds. It's a refund, but because it's a refund, it has to go to the revenue council is being recognized as revenue. Working with David in a lot of just a good work on his part, we're going into it's 5 million range. And so rather than paying everything up front and waiting to be reimbursed, we're basically paid the discounted amount on those utilities. And some of those projects that we have going on. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit for the district, especially where we're at financially, where rather than paying the bill up front and paying the full 100%, we're going to be paying the discounted amount. Athletics, no change there. State M&O revenue is decreasing by about $3 million, but as you can see, like I said, it just shifts where the side of the bucket's at. So $2.5 million, $2.5 million gain on the local revenue tax. So that $500,000 difference is attributed to about a 55 FTE count or student count loss of NSCE. A lot of that has to do with coming out of the COVID situation where there's a lot of direct certification, making sure that we're getting folks to certify and make sure that they're trying to that's gonna be the hard part, so if someone's already direct certified through Texas Workforce Commission or something like that, there's really not a lot that if you got to get certified. And filling paper because they know they're still gonna get their free use. So just, but like, speaking with Mr. Johnson, there's a plan in place for that, making sure that we recover some of that. So we should see that, that number decrease or that, shortfall decrease from about 3 million. I imagine we could break even, but it all depends on where we come back in terms of that paperwork filled in registration. State charge and MAC revenue, we had budgeted 584,000. We exited the charge and MAC program at the end of December, or early part of December, after Dr. Crawl and her team did a lot of great legwork on that, bringing those numbers to you guys and presented those in October, basically showing where it was no longer a benefit. We're still paying, quite a bit, but because of reduced ratios and reduced ways that we were able to, and reduced items that we were able to claim in terms of the SHARS program, as far as Medicaid billable costs, the return on investment just really wasn't there anymore. So back in October, I wasn't here for that meeting, but after reviewing everything, the decision was made to exit the program. Chapter 313 revenue, we have, let's see, OQ, Peyton Creek, and Air the Key. Sorry, so out of those three, the only one that has to fix payment is OQ, Air the Key, and Peyton Creek are 40% of whatever revenue or cost savings that the industry have. So that's going to be based off of property values. That's an estimate. The most recent estimate as of last Thursday for KC of 650,000, so $49,000 increase there, and the TRS on behalf keeping it flat at 1.7. Overall, you're seeing a $1.3 million decrease in revenue, but a lot of that has to do with, like I mentioned, we're going to lose 200,000 due to interest income. We lost close to 600,000, so that's almost $1 million right there. And then taking more conservative approach on some of these local revenues, which I put down, and then the rest of the meeting I got 5, some of that lost net season. Overall, projected revenue is about 34.6 million. Proposed budget is looking at currently 38.5, so we're looking at 3.9 million.
This is using
This
the goal allotment number.
take it.
This is not the increase of 195 that comes about. How much is it?
So if they do what they have on the table right now, we would be looking at an increase of 395.
395, not 195.
Yeah.
Which is like 1.2 million if you get all of it. I know there's like factors and all that other stuff.
Right. And so
Okay.
Right, and so we would also, we're gonna need to make sure that we plan ahead, and that's one of the things that we need to talk about, that if that does, 40% of that does go to teachers' pay raises, but we also need to have a clear plan on a compensation plan for that, and then also what we do with the rest of that revenue. So because otherwise we're not gonna know until right when it's time to set budget, and so if we get that information before it's time to set budget, we need to be able to say, okay, this is the direction we're gonna go. Because there will be, depends on what kind of raise we're looking at, and then how much is left out of that bucket. And then what do we do with that piece? I would venture to say that we're gonna try to use that to offset the deficit as much as possible, but we need to have those discussions ahead of time. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate that piece, but he's 100% right, and then on top of that, just looking at, what the impacts are of increasing the basic allotment. Can't go up for a bit, at least that's what happened in 2019. On top of that, we're dealing with, now counting between 5 to 6 years, not really receiving the funding that we should receive across the state. So, let's have it as something historic, it's historic because you have to get this funding for 6 years. At least the funding. So a lot of that's there. There's a lot of different formulas in there, but ultimately, like I said, we're looking at a potential $4 million deficit right now as it stands, and then just by assumption, what I could provide for you guys, this came directly from Skyward. What we had was about 26.8, almost 29 in adopted payroll expenditures. We're looking at about 26.6. So $250,000 savings, but I know a lot of that's also in flux and changing daily just because we're, people resigning. And we're also working very, very hard as a team. George's done a phenomenal job of just making sure she's recruiting and doing all the things to make sure that we're not falling short of classroom staff appropriately. But just kind of wanted to highlight some of that here. In function 21, you'll notice like a $75,000, $76,000 savings. Some of that, like I said, we'll have to adjust, but we did save about $35,000 this year in function 21 on the grant. Same thing in function 40, where we saved quite another additional $35,000, and we were looking at the full 70 for savings, and that was the strategic staffing grant. There was, a lot of hard work by Elizabeth and Jordan, everybody working good on that piece, but just to kind of break down some of the salary amounts. And then if we look at 41, of course, we had CFO retire in December, so you see some savings there. Like I said, it was short and sweet to the point that they won't get to these. But if you guys have questions, feel free to.
No, I appreciate this overview because, I mean, the previous messaging was that we were $7 or $8 million deficit. And so to see that it's 3 point something and there might be some more help on the way is good. Or we might as well call it 4. Okay, it's 3.9 plus.
Yeah. And a lot of that is because we made some difficult decisions here over the last couple of weeks. A lot of buy-in from the principals as well. But when it comes time down to your discretionary budgets, just, speaking with other districts, looking to see how they kind of evaluated the districts that are much bigger than us. They typically, the discretionary budgets are smaller. So, dialing those back, like I said, a lot of buy-in from principals. The principal Mosier, Boris today, also met with Coach Jones. And just a lot of buy-in from the two of them. So continue to see that as well all the way across the board. But we're decreasing their discretionary budgets by 20%.
So can you just, what is used for that discretionary budget? Like, what does that help, fund?
So that funds like supplies and classroom,
Okay.
stuff like that. A lot of the world's trying to push more things towards the allotments and more appropriate funds. CTE was one where we were kind of keeping it flat while the allotment was growing. So having to sit there and shift some of that spending at the junior high and high school levels to make sure that we're spending requirements there. So even though they might, lose some of the discretionary budget, or at least, if we're going to cut it here, we're going to give them a little bit more there or shift it so that they spend it in the appropriate places where we need to start.
So one of the good things is that when he, you tell me if I'm wrong, but when he's talking about discretionary budget, he's talking about the overall allocation that the campus receives, right? And so then they're supposed to go in and assign that to where they need that. It could be supplies, it could be all kinds of things. But the really good thing is that we do receive quite a bit of funding that does support the instructional piece. And so that really is not going to be affected in any capacity because almost everything that we do instructionally flows through SCE or title or something of that nature, or early childhood, these types of allotments. So I know what you say, last year we cut 10%. This year it's 20, but it's 10 and 10. It's significant, but it's not going to have an effect on the instructional program. And then the other piece is that once you start offsetting that cost, it'll help a lot in the long run. What's the other piece that I was going to mention? I lost it.
Come back later. And the actual versus budgeted, it still looks like it's coming in under.
I'm still working on that, so just couldn't figure just where it. We're still doing this study to ask the other departments.
Yeah.
And, just getting that covered. We had our summer PO go on this last Friday. So that work with maintenance, IT, some of those, so they're still doing some projects, just making sure getting that general.
I remember what I was going to say, do you remember what the total savings was ish? Yeah. So it's not hugely significant when you think about our deficit, even though we're cutting 20%, that's not where the saving. There is saving, but that's not what's going to save us. We've cut personnel as much as we can, according to staffing ratios, there's not really anywhere else to cut as far as you talk about staffing. There are needs that have to be met, especially education. That's the thing we've talked about, contracted services. Even though we are paying out a lot and we have to maintain maintenance of effort, if we start being able to shift over and be able to recruit people that are in-house, then as the years go by, that maintenance of effort, that starts to drift away. So we're not spending an overall, you know what I mean? So, because some people look at that as, well, we're still gonna have to make up the difference, so it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it does, because if we have in-house, as you go year to year, the total expenditure can start to go down, and maintenance effort is gonna have to be as big. And so we will start to see a savings, but the key piece to that is staffing internally. And you're gonna have to attract people in order to do that. So that's something to consider as we talk about these pay grades for the specific group of special education, because they're the one, that specific area is the one where the blood is coming out all the time. And unless we fix that, we're not gonna be able to get our capacity back, to the tune of what, $800,000 is what we're looking at, each year that we've been spending on that piece. And we don't see that changing in the staffing pattern, unless we're able to recruit and retain some people that they're not gonna go and make something somewhere else. Sorry, that's what.
No, absolutely. So campus cuts came out to about 240,000, rounding up. But then having to make up for some CT allowance that we never had cash around, some in the CE last year. And still keeping that, as much as we could, we just kind of bump it up to where we can just try to be at your average of spending. Total cuts came out to about 63,000 in terms of savings. So not significant on Mr. Townsend saying the bulk of our savings are going to come from more salaries. That's what they always reach to us, cash flow, reaching through. Maybe we're our bill, that's where we sit there saying check versus, ratios. And we know what Mr. Townsend said, we're solutions.
Dues, and I know we give stipends for coaches and like that type of stuff. Do we give stipends to our special ed? Is there a stipend for special ed, or is that just you're paid and?
It depends on the setting, right?
Okay.
So like when you have, life skills or functional academics or essential academics or things like that, what they're doing is more intensive. It requires a higher skill level, right? And so they do get a stipend that's in place. And I know that I had talked about a different stipend also for BMU, but what we did find is that stipend already exists for behavior. It would just name something different.
Okay.
So we'll be able to do that and hopefully attract those people. And I know I had that on the agenda, but we don't need to discuss that because we found that it already exists.
Okay.
So yes, those stipends do exist for those signing areas, but it's still, for some of those, like what we're having a contract for, it's still not meeting where we need to be, in order to get here. Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of 313 revenue, we lost, 2 future projects, so that's what we're looking at. Evergreen renewable backed out, so Department of Clean Energy, which would be pretty too. So the only one we have coming on now in the future.
And when is it?
Yeah, so it's 20.
What it should be.
They want to do 20.
And remember that all of the 313s that we got before are actually budgeted, and they're continue to decrease in value and drop off. So, that's not a constant there. So that'll be a decrease in revenue as we move forward as well, that we'll have to, keep in mind.
What about that one company that was supposed to come in? Future $2 billion project, yeah. The German company. I
Yeah,
think.
I don't know. And we didn't meet they weren't pulled, I guess, for when we did we did a special meeting. What was the name? BCISD, maybe?
Yeah.
And they didn't get pulled by the comptroller, so they lost their 313 ability to go back in so I haven't heard anything about it.
So they're probably be looking at that new Jedi.
Yes, that's what they were looking at, but I haven't heard anything else.
So, one case you gave an update, they're still not kind of talking about this, they're really not beneficial for school districts, so I think districts will be the residents and kind of interview.
Okay.
But, there's that piece where Mr. Johnson said, those, the ones we have are currently built in the budget. We're only, if we want to continue looking at the future plan, once that money does come on, it's something that we really pause.
Right.
Just to see what we can do. So I decided to take a look at where we're at in terms of, here recently, and
So we know what the initial window is that, when we initially took out all the loans and how they stacked up. And what we best did was try to work on where are we at now with the banks and everything. So we get an idea currently where are we? Yeah. And so that's what we need to get worked on.
That's on the bottom side.
On the M&S.
I mean,
Oh, and the other side.
All those.
So all the
Yeah,
maintenance
yeah, yeah,
taxes
yeah.
started
No,
back
thank
in
you.
2000,
Yeah,
was it 9, I think? so far?
since 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2009 was BCISD loan that was taken out and then refinanced in 2015. So that was for the district-wide energy management system. Then we had another one for air project handler, or air handler project at basically high school timeline. 2016 acquisition of real property related to that project, to the previous project. Another maintenance tax on 2016 acquisition of real property again.
Is that when we purchased, what does that mean?
That's all I was able to.
Okay.
In terms of purchasing. Maintenance tax on 2020, which is the high school roof, and then 2022, which is the one that, was taken out for, teen homes renovation, teen room renovation, HVAC controls, admin, chair, and then the old Warren Stadium renovation. And then there was a state energy conservation or SECO loan taken out in 2022 for energy efficiency, and savings. So as of, let's see, 5/9/2025, we have about 9.4 left outstanding. And then budgeting for 26/27, that comes out to, in terms of budget payments, almost 1.6 million. So we don't see those payments drop off from, a little over $1 million. They don't drop until under $1 million until 2028.
And can any of that be moved over to INS?
So that's something we would have to explore for sure, prior to the bond. I know that's something that Lewis had talked to us about, saying that we maintain an INS rate, to build
Yes.
capacity,
Right.
start with fees, but then we build that capacity, let's say, build $18 million worth of bond capacity. We go out for a bond to the, or say, just 9 or whatever we want to do. We go out, we push for a bond, we make, whatever, if it passes, then we should be able to kind of refinance that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think going over that list of what we spent those loans on is very insightful, because it wasn't just willy-nilly spend the money.
No.
There were actual projects that had to be done, and we didn't have capacity at the time. Is that why, do you know?
A little bits that I picked up here and there is that I think we had the most recent one issue prior to that for building a new school.
Correct.
In the early 2000s. And I think there wasn't a lot of success trying to address maybe get another bond off the ground. So without having a bond to sit and address a lot of these issues in the schools, they turn around and just
Yeah. I remember that the teen homes wing was a big deal.
It wasn't,
We didn't have the money to do that.
it was,
The maintenance tax, that was the only reason we got the thing built there.
same with Key Ingram.
We had a difficult conversation of destroying the team room, and the community spoke very loudly that we needed to save it, so we took the loan out to save it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the spending was critical stuff.
Just overall looking at some of it, I think even, it would have been worse. I was just wanting to take, give credit credit's due. Maintenance and operations team did a phenomenal job, really evaluating 300. So we renovated as opposed to demolish it. We have more classrooms there now than we would have demolished. So,
Right.
things there for sure.
Correct. Yeah, and I think just the people knowing what that money was spent on is very important. To know that Titcom's, Key Ingram, the stadium that was falling apart, those types of things, I think is important for the community to know for sure.
So just a couple of things worth mentioning, as we wrap this up. Remember that hopefully the state will go through with some of the things that we were talking about, the increase in the allotment, about $300 increase in the mid-size allotment, possibly adjustments, and then the move for special education funding to intensity-based funding, which may equate for more funding for some of our higher need students that we're not getting funded for, and then possible relief for school districts that fail their property value study, which we are not dealing with right now. But then I heard some of the best, I don't know if I got that, but when we were talking about the revenue loss, with the SHARs, did I hear some chatter about potential aid to offset that? I read that somewhere.
There was, I think it was almost, was the number that I heard, but it wasn't
Which won't go too far.
Yeah. across the state in terms of just because like it is, it goes back to the audit from 2011. So we're going to audit the state based on 2011 figures. A lot of this got time just brought to the public eye, especially in our public sources, so we're going to take a look at it. Basically told the state, hey, you're distributing funds, you should be distributing. Rather than taking it from districts and taking the funds that they give it to, they essentially kind of just tighten it out and make it harder for the state to receive funding and without the state's. So that's the tough piece there in terms of what we can claim the IEP ratios are now. The one that they try non-loyalty that we have. You normally could bill for speech therapy in terms of Medicaid billing, but unfortunately they made it tougher to where we still have to provide the service, but in order to receive a reimbursement for it, that child has to have a prescription from the primary care. A lot of it, the incentive probably isn't there for parents to do that because it's just been set in the district. They're receiving the service whether they don't get that prescription or not. So, and then getting that prescription, they're not just saying not just saying that. So definitely, it's an example of how they made it tougher to get some of that.
So one of the things when we move forward, when we talk about potential bond or whatever behind us, we also need to keep in mind what does that look like after the legislative session? Is leaders are going to be on the horizon? There's a potential. Do you want to go? If it is, do you want to go out for a bond for this? And then then you're trying to hit somebody up for Vader again. Vader really would be what would benefit the district most long term. So I think about that. But in the meantime, suggest that we maintain our INS tax rate at where it's at, so we continue to build capacity in there. I think that's something the board should consider to really make that, a commitment to that piece. And so, one of did we already go over pre-K partnerships? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's pretty much it.
Any more questions for Mr. Gomez or anything? Anything more? Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you for your work. We appreciate you.
One of the things on the pre-K partnerships that was in the board book is that we did get an opinion from our attorney. We talked about expanding outside of our boundaries. There was a third party that was involved in that thing, so it would give us the capacity to do that. We only have to handle the PIMS piece, right? I say only, it's still a heavy lift. But then in talking, so we wouldn't have to do the evaluations, for certification, the services, bilingual testing, all of those things. So the attorney said, no, that's not true. You will still be on the hook for that. It doesn't matter. You are responsible. So if they fall short or whatever, the district is going to be liable for it. And you still have to provide those services. Doesn't matter where they're at. They're enrolled with you. Doesn't matter if they live over in that district. They are enrolled with you, so they're yours. If you're going to get the funding for it, then you're going to have to service them. And they went also as far as to say outside of this letter that if we were to pursue something like that, that they could not represent us because it would surmount to malpractice. So unfortunately, that potential revenue source is off the table. Now, they suggested that we expand our pre-K partnerships, like we are. And we can do the same model outside, but you're talking about a whole new staff and everything to do all of that. So it's just really, I just want to let you guys know, because that was a potential really big revenue source, but it's not going to go. We can't do it. We can't do it. So anyway, that's it for the PK partnerships and the budget. I think the next thing that we need to talk about is the custodial.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Ms. Crosstoff, one of the things that we had realized is that if you talk about accrued time, and so one of the potential costs of the district would be do we pay out accrued time for those staff members, right? And so if you look at policy, which is in there, Ms. Crosstoff will talk to you about it. Normally, as it is now, if I were to let's say I would leave the district and I have 10 years with the district, then I could submit to have my personal or local leave paid out by the district up to 20 days. And so one of the things that we wanted to put for you so that as you're considering the RFP is that this potential cost, would the board want to pay that for every employee, or would you want to stick to policy where it's, you've been with us for 10 years, we pay out up to the 20, and Ms. Crosskoff has given you a cost analysis on what that may look like.
Yes, so I did include that in your workbook, I didn't know if you have any questions, I can go through it, if you don't want me to go through it, I did have Rick come up here because I know he also included a very important piece, I thought that was, when he shared with us the other day here in executive, I thought it was very positive, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, and we can do the cost analysis, because I think we can both go hand in hand together, because we're talking about leave. We're talking about paying out our employees with their remaining leave. The first analysis that I provided was if we were to pay all employees their remaining up to 10 days. A lot of our custodians, they use their time through the year, which that's the purpose of that time. So when I provided the cost analysis, the first page was based off of the current data. The cost that it would be towards the district is $15,540.39 for our all custodian staff. Now, if we just went by policy, which is our DEC local, that is up to 20 days, and you have to be with the districts for 10 plus years. We also use the daily rate at the past 5 years. We're not going to do that with these custodians. We would use whatever their daily rate is today, that's what they would get paid out for. So if we were, when I did the cost analysis for the custodian staff with 10 or more years of service, we only had about 13 custodial employees. And that would be right at $6,995.85. So not a huge difference between the 15,000. I felt that with our current staff members and where we're at, it could be a positive for our staff. I know that that was a huge question. I know President Westbrook was at that town hall that we had, but I did want Rick to go ahead and share the piece in regards to the extra week of vacation that the custodial service did provide.
We did get confirmation from AHI that they accepted the contract that we provided from the RFP packet. And then I asked them about, potentially adding some vacation to that, because that was a big point during that meeting was, well, you're telling me I have to wait a whole year to get a week of vacation. Compared to what we did here at the district, it was kind of a setback. So reached out to him, asked him that, and he said, yes, after a 90-day probation period, they would have their 3 sick days and 1 week of vacation. And then after a full year of employment, they would gain a second week of vacation. So all in all, it'd be about 13 days of paid time off plus 6 paid holidays. So about 19 days compared to roughly 30 to 35, I think is what our number is here at the district with the 12 paid holidays and then the personal time and the safe home. So we about half of what we get here at the district is what they would get, but they would also get paid off that we wouldn't be able to provide at this time.
Cool question. When we looked at the cost analysis of how much we're paying now budgeted for custodial, does that include all those extra days?
This analysis?
No. So, when we look, we're paying this much, this is how much the contract is gonna cost us, and we're
Oh, I'm
paying.
sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Vince. You gotta tell me something.
We're paying this much for the contract, and then this is how much we're actually paying the district right now.
That was included.
Okay. Yeah, well, but so that's a big piece, I'm wondering, because, you know what I mean? Because you're talking about a good chunk of money that we pay for that extra time. So how much are we actually spending? Does that make sense?
There's a cost when an employee takes time off. If I'm having an employee take time off, then we don't have costs associated with it.
If we got 30 paid days as opposed to they would be getting this, but how much are we paying for all of that? It's the total cost, but that's a lot of time, so how much are we paying?
And every time that they take off, remember, all of that is part of it. And I think that was important even when we discussed the 260, because I think it was one day during cabinet, it kind of dawned on everybody when it was being told, Rick and I talk it all the time. So after a while, when we're sitting here saying, yeah, they're getting this many days of paid time off versus somebody else, That's a lot of additional funds that go towards, somebody that sits under a 260 versus 226 and less. So I think that's a huge perk, especially whenever we are looking at the analysis to see how much is the district giving towards there that we could save if we were to go to the custodial services. Did y'all have any questions about that analysis?
No, I guess that will be on the next board agenda for approval.
It will be on May 20th, that's next, it's May 20th.
I know we're not voting on it, but I'd be in favor of paying all of them. It's only 15,000 compared to 7.
Yeah.
And it gives something to everybody. that's
I
legal.
agree, and they've earned it.
I agree.
It's something that,
And it will be positive to share with them. I know we have had some custodians inquire, like, do I need to go ahead and start using my vacation? I have shared with my team to please tell them, hold off, if they need to use it, they have emergency or want to take a day, absolutely. But, they were just curious, should I go ahead and start using that time now so I don't lose it? So I did share with the team, please just, hold off till May 20th. We knew that we were gonna be putting it in front of the board and we could make a decision from that.
are there any other questions, just in general about the custodial RFP that anyone has before we put it up? I mean, obviously, we'll have discussion at May 20th, but now would be a great time to ask any questions that kind of sit, so we can get answers between now and next Tuesday.
I have a question. Did you ever have a chance to speak with them concerning other than at the town? Did you talk about where we going, this may happen, that may happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you?
I've been in constant communication with them.
And I think honestly, the whole team, from all different departments have done a phenomenal job, to be honest. I know it's a tough time right now. And again, but I know they've reached out to my team quite a bit. I've shared with them, just be respectful. They have a lot of questions and they always are, but Britt's team and I know my team and the payroll team have done a phenomenal job of just kind of answering as many questions as we can. And if it's a question that they can't ask, they can always direct it to us so that we can ask it, and more importantly, Mr. Britt can.
And that's why we've done the cost analysis on the leave payout, because that's been one of the main topics from the town hall meeting and then follow-up meetings that I've had with them. Is like, well, what about our time that we've accrued? What about this? So that's kind of where a lot of this is stemming from, is getting those conversations and feedback from the custodians themselves.
Yeah, just going back to my notes from the town hall, a lot of the questions revolved around holidays and even the trying to figure out the bad weather days when the district shut down, did they not get paid because they're not working, that type of stuff. So have those conversations been happening? And I know it's all in negotiations, but
Yes, ma'am.
is that something that will be shared in the contract when we see it next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So that isn't in writing right now.
Okay.
It can be talked about, it continue to be talked about, we'll follow up on those discussions at any time, make sure that, all our bases are covered.
Okay.
And that's having the bad weather days in there.
Just the bad, I know the question was asked
Yes.
in regards to the time off,
Yes.
when the district closes,
Right.
because of bad weather, they still get paid. And HI, it's like, I don't know, we can have a conversation about it, so just to ensure that those answers. And then, anything overtime related, I know that was also a big deal, because a lot of these custodians do work a lot of overtime at events and stuff like that, so how will that shake out? Will they still?
It'll still kind of work how it is here now.
Okay.
Obviously, they'll provide services for extracurriculars and things like that, football games, one at play, theaters, as we're currently, providing services for. So the opportunity will still be there for overtime.
Okay.
They may have a little bit of a different process. That was something that when we first really started sitting down and analyzing the contract, we made sure to really make sure that that was documented on the contract to specify if a BCIS, or I'm sorry, if a contracted employee or AHI employee, which would be their custodian, wanted to participate in a BCISD function, please allow them to, that we are all for it, because we know we need the support for it. So we wanted to make sure that that was identified.
Any other questions about the RFP? And like was mentioned, it will be on the agenda for discussion and approval next Tuesday. So if you have questions between now and then, please reach out to Mr. Townsend so we can get those answered. I also was given the email, so you're welcome to reach out to me and I can just take a picture of the card and pass it on to you. If you'd like to talk to the representatives from Asia. All right, thank y'all so much, I appreciate it. All right, the last thing on our workshop is facilities.
So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up, it's a May meeting, and I'd like to really try to bring to you guys. You know, we had an RFP for Old Lenny Roberts, and that of course has expired. And so we've got a lot of downtime right now, but there's nothing available for people to continue to look at that and possibly, you know, make some type of, try to meet those criteria. And I know there's been a lot of questions in the community about, you know, I want to do this and that kind of thing. One of the good things about the RFP is it makes sure that everybody has an equal opportunity and that we're not playing favorites for anybody, but it also establishes a common set of criteria that is minimum that really somebody's going to need to have in order to move forward with anything with that building. So Mr. Gomez and his team has been working with Blake over at Walsh on 3 just scenarios for an RFP. And so we just wanted to bring those scenarios to you, you know, whether it's buy or lease or sell or donate, you know, that kind of thing, so that you guys can talk about that. And it wouldn't be necessarily a decision to start it, but we could, if we knew what kind of direction you guys want to go in. I think last time we did the donate route because we had so many people. The historical market was a real big barrier for somebody to buy it. And so the donate piece, we had somebody get really, really close. And so it was the insurance that was an issue for them. So we just wanted to try to get that going again. So we want to bring that to you so you can have discussions around it on the 20th. The other piece that I want to talk to you guys about is my understanding is that Pierce, the reversionary clause was lifted off. Mr. Reynolds did a lot of legwork all over the nation, get his heirs to sign off on that. So it is ready to be able to be sold if you guys wanted to entertain that. What I would like to do is to have Mr. Gomez work with our attorneys to have an RFQ, which is what you would need to get a realtor to begin to like list that and start working that piece for some type of proposal for the board. Our FQ is request for qualifications, I believe. And so we would like to bring that to you, and if you agree to get that started, so that we can put that out there, and then maybe we can have a realtor to begin. That may be a really some type of relief for us with the sale of that property possibly. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that I will bring that to you guys, and then hopefully for an action item on the RFQ piece. Lenny Roberts, just so you guys can give some guidance on which direction you want to go on the RFP for us.
So we have, for the RFP, we have to choose one of those 3 scenarios to put it out.
Correct.
Okay.
You can't put all 3 out there at the same time?
I don't think so. You can check though.
That's no. Okay.
Absolutely, yes. So what we just need to define, are we saying that we want to pitch the whole nine to sell? Or do we want to have an option of we donate if they meet the criteria, or is there a lease option? So we want to look at all 3 of those before we consider what would be the best route for us to go on the RFP to relaunch.
But the RFP it has specific things that the organization, the company, whatever route that we go has to come to the district with, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Just like the other ones that we've done,
Okay.
exactly like that.
okay,
It just, we need to relaunch, but I want to make sure that we relaunch in
In
the
the
direction
correct
you
way.
guys want.
okay,
Correct, yeah, because we've already tried to sell the property, like Mr. Townsend said,
Yeah.
we've also tried to donate it. The donation process was done through an RFP, just to make sure it's fair for everyone. In either of those 2 scenarios, we would just have to make sure people Walsh and those packets updated
okay,
appropriately, but then the other option that we may entertain and present to you guys would be to lease it potentially. But in order, like, just to know how to fairness for whatever organization wants to lease it, so we don't show favoritism to one another. We would probably direction on that. Just speaking with Blake, you mentioned, that was just getting direction for the board. We have language ready for that as well, as we discuss some other things.
Okay.
If we leased it, somebody who's leasing it would probably have to get like a certificate of occupancy or something to make sure that So we could just lease the newer portions and not the older portions if that were the case?
It seems that way.
Okay, because I know the older portions, there were millions of dollars that need to be done
Yeah.
to those buildings, but the newer ones seem to be in better shape.
That's the hard part about it, designations, so we can't.
If we were to say, let's move forward with lease, who would carry the insurance on them?
Districts, carry this one. That one, they would have some sort of renter's insurance based on my understanding. Like, so.
But our lease fee could cover the cost of the insurance, so that we're net neutral, or?
Potentially, but I know that the cost of insurance is so significant for something that we're trying to build, so they might not be able to afford it, so. That's the big issue.
It almost feels like, and of course, this will be a discussion later, that in order to really be successful with this, we're gonna have to have partnerships come together in order to afford, and I almost was like, we talk about, when we talk with development, corporation and others, YMCA, in order to afford to do it, it's almost like we gotta come together to be able to afford to move forward, and I don't know that, I'm just in my mind thinking, how is this actually gonna happen if we can't find somebody who can afford the insurance, so.
Work had been done already on that same note, but so. The historical marker that's making everything so difficult, work had been done to downgrade that, so to leave it as a historical marker, but not at the highest level.
Right, and they refused to do it, and then they said, well, just go ahead and tear it down and see what happens, and maybe we'll do it.
Yeah, so the state came back and denied the request to lower, because the historical marker is at the highest, it's a land and a building.
Yeah.
So therefore, the building, anything you do to the exterior has to be exactly the same. So we went to the state and said, can you please remove it and we'll reapply for a land only to open up the availability for people to do something with the building that's not gonna cost so much money. And they denied that request. But then they came back and said, but you can tear it down and then we can change it.
But what about the fact that the board never authorized it or signed
They
it?
didn't.
It's almost like it's kind of political.
Here's a big item, a big contract with one, two towns, but I don't have it. And it's really funny that they want to say the board don't want this to happen. But I think it's just like I said, if there's some verbiage out there.
Right.
What's it gonna take, they still have to go to a process. And it's better to have just many organizations. I don't think one organization can handle the insurance. But we're selling or leasing as is. And we already know that the main building is full of mold. And I would not want my child going to that. So we take on the insurance, knowing that it's a limit. We don't limit, it's a limit. And we are taking on and we're still paying for the insurance. But what about the safety of the kids? I mean, that to me, that is more than anything else. Because as a parent, I would not want to go into that. And I really don't understand, so we have to explain to you why is it that we need to tear down the landmark? Why can't it just remain where it is?
So
But I know you're talking about the height of the.
yeah, so in order to do anything to the building, to fix the exterior, you cannot change the exterior of the building whatsoever. So if you were to, so you could tear apart every wall inside, but the exterior has to remain the same. So if somebody wanted to come in and say, oh, I want the building, but I only want to use the gym in the back wing and tear down the front, they can't. It has to stay and it has to be restored or continue in its state, and they just use those back, but nothing can be done to that front or the back buildings that is different than what it is currently because of the level, they call it the level of marker on the building. Instead of it just being the land, it's the land and the building, so therefore, everything has to remain looking exactly the same if anyone was to come in and change it. So if somebody, let's just say somebody's gonna come in and put in a community center, or come in and put in the YMCA and put in a weight room and put in all the pool, all the things, everything would have to look on the outside exactly the same as it does right now. Does that make sense? It's just a very high level marker that really ties anyone's hands when trying to do it because it makes it that much more expensive to source the material, to find the things, because it's all older than what we currently have. So you're having to special order a lot of stuff and make it to that building, because you can't change window sizes, you can't.
Okay, because I know we had this discussion.
We did.
And I thought we settled it by saying, leave, because I understand that it's going from a high level
Right.
to a lower level. Why do we do the high level?
We didn't do that. Dr. Scott signed it on his way when he left our district, when he moved on to the next job. He signed it without board approval. So that's what we were trying to go to the state and say is this isn't even valid because there's no board approval on it. And Dr. Marshall Scott cannot act as a lone person. He has to act in what the board says, and it was never brought before the board, but it has his signature on it. Yeah. So that's the problem. If it would have come to the board, I don't know what the board would have done, but it was never to the board. So in effect, it would just be like passing anything that's on our voting for it and moving forward with it. Nothing, it doesn't mean anything if the board didn't put their stamp on it. Does that make sense?
And I think it's you, Mr. Johnson, that I asked the question. I'm thinking that something needs to be put out there and covered up there, put out the fight. Because right now, we are the bad and no one wants to come to us because of the way that the community is talking about it. So when we talk about leasing it, renting it, or buying it, whatever, can that be like your email that you send out to the community? This is what we need in order. You know, they just need to know the process.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I think that, Mr. Gomez, when you work with them, you know, to get a good answer from Blake on, you know, can we increase our advertising of the RFP and to what extent or whatever?
I haven't asked that piece,
But I think that'd be good for us to, because I think probably a lot of people don't know about it.
Right. And even if it's just a district letter, a letter on district letterhead that says, these are the steps, these are the qualifications, here's the link, or I don't know how you get to an RFP, I just made that up, but whatever it is, go visit Mr. Gomez in the office. I don't know what to pick up the next, whatever that looks like.
And that was recorded. Go visit Mr. Gomez on contract.
Whatever the process is, sorry, please not show. Because there's no packet, there's nothing at this point. But whatever the process is, the requirements in that RFP, just to get it out there, I don't know.
So could you talk to them and find out to what links can we go to get that information to the public and what format, so that when we get those three scenarios, we have a clear picture of how much communication and what we can communicate for that RFP process. I think that would help us out.
My finger is like this. Do I answer that question? No, don't answer. Should I say this?
Well, we might be able to have a town hall.
No, it's not.
We could even have a town hall, there's a event rental place over there, close to Mary Roberts, so we could even have a town hall at.
You know, don't have a town hall, a meeting, it is here.
Yeah.
We have to think about,
Or even at a church over there.
and that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
somewhere
or
they can get to it.
And so let's get some information.
Yeah.
With Brent.
After Jeremy.
trying to push the advertising.
Okay, thank you. Please don't visit Mr. Gomez in his office. He only works from 2:30 to 4:30 a.m. I'm kidding. Sorry.
I mean, it was time we get to sleep, so.
Okay, we are going to move right along. Are there any other questions about the budget portion of the workshop in that manner or anything? You have so many questions or no? Oh, I was like, okay, all right, we're gonna move into closed session. So we're gonna convene into closed session for 3 different items. A, personal matters if necessary may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, resignation, duties, discipline, reassignment or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administrators and teachers. B, presentation of a level 3 employee grievance hearing and deliberation regarding same pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 and 551.082, and C, consultation with legal counsel regarding level 3 employee grievances, hearing and related matters, and any other subject matters as permitted by law pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071. We will move into closed session at 6 p.m.
We're gonna take personnel first.
We're gonna take personnel first, and then we'll come
to reevaluate Mr. Brooks' professional experience and have a conversation with the board on compensation, as well as evaluate policy regarding reposting positions where jobs are reclassified or salaries are significantly increased.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any further conversation, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Right? Yes. Okay, we are going to go back into closed session under personnel matters if necessary, may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, resignation, or dismissal of public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administration and teachers. We will reconvene into closed session at 7:43. Oh, yeah. Session at 8:06. Discuss and consider approval of hiring contractual personnel. Is there a motion to be made?
No.
No, we did not.
Make a motion that we approve the hiring and the next that's specific to board book.
Perfect.
Is
Is there a second to the motion? I second.
No.
Of the personnel that was presented earlier, from earlier. We just, remember we went in and came out and then went in back. So no, you're fine. So there is a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion? I second it. All right. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, last item of business is adjournment. Is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I second it.
All right, real quick, before we adjourn, I would like to thank Trustee Nunez for his time. I know this is his last meeting, is next meeting, but thank you for what you've done for our school district. You have been an integral part of this board and truly, truly appreciate you and your
So what am I
service.
gonna do? You know, I don't have to sit in this meeting. And I want everybody to argue.
Oh, fix it. I said, you got plenty to argue.
Are there any other comments or questions?
In response, I appreciate all your support, for helping me through this. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. See what happens.
We appreciate you. Thank you for all that you did. All right, any other further comments? Is, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We will adjourn this meeting at 8:08. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Does she need to sign that resolution? Is that the day?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
I'm not gonna stay on.
Yes.